The President of the Democratic Republic of Congo has authorized United States Special Forces to enter the country and ostensibly help the Congolese army battle ADF rebels, reportedly linked to Daesh terrorist group. Now, Kambale Musavuli, a DRC human rights activist, says ADF are being used as a pretext for U.S. forces to enter his country.
We know in DRC that this is just a pretext to have military presence in the DRC that's continuous. The ADF for us is our weapons of mass destruction. Never been found, we do not know what they do, yet it's always a pretext for military presence.
Hello, I'm Mubarak Kenya, and a warm welcome to this week's edition of Africa Today, a program which gives you an alternative view on events taking place in Africa. Today we are focusing on the move by the United States to send its special forces to the Democratic Republic of Congo under the pretext of fighting the ADF rebel group. We are examining the real reasons behind U.S. military deployment to this mineral-rich country. In the second segment of our program, we are analyzing the digital divide in Africa and how it's impacting negatively on the continent. Stay with us till the end of our show and send us your comments as you watch.
U.S. troops in mineral-rich Democratic Republic of Congo. On the night of August 13, 2021, a U.S. Special Forces team arrived in Kinshasa, the capital city of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The alleged objective of this deployment goal is to fight the invisible and fabricated ISIS-Daesh terrorist group. Washington claims the ADF terrorist group, originally from Uganda, is affiliated to ISIS. However, multiple reports, including the UN group of experts, have categorically rejected that any ties exist in the DRC between ISIS terrorist group and rebels known as the Allied Democratic Forces, or the ADF.
The President of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, has authorized U.S. Special Forces deployment in his country. Now, this decision is in contrast with two former presidents, Laurent Desire Kabila and Joseph Kabila, who resisted attempts by the U.S. to deploy its forces in the country. During his speech at the recent session of the General Assembly of the United Nations, President Tshisekedi said his country has joined a U.S.-led coalition that claims to fight terrorism.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has joined the global coalition against terrorism as the 24th member. My country is delighted with the decision taken by the coalition's meeting in Rome on the 20th of June to set up within it a working group on terrorism in Africa.
Now, this announcement by Tshisekedi is seen as signaling a major shift in his country's foreign policy, and this might help the U.S. topple China's dominance as Kinshasa's preferred trading partner. Now, to discuss more about the growing U.S. influence in the DRC, we have contacted Claude Gatebuke, the Executive Director of the African Great Lakes Action Network. Thanks a lot for your time, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Now, our first question, can you tell us why the Democratic Republic of Congo is unable to effectively combat rebel movements in the East?
One is that the DRC military itself is corrupt. It's made up of a mix of former rebels who were involved in destabilizing the Congo in the first place, people who are who should be facing charges for war crimes and crimes against humanity, but now they're part of the official DRC military. The other part is the destabilizing factor coming from neighboring countries, especially Uganda and Rwanda. Rwanda specifically having been a major destabilizing force, which is Rwanda and Uganda both supported by the US and the UK and now France. The third is that there's so many international organizations, multinationals, and even governments that fuel the conflict in the Congo.
Thanks for that, Mr. Claude Gatebuke.
UN experts said in June that they had not found conclusive evidence of ISIS or Daesh command and control over ADF operations. By ignoring the UN report and explicitly linking the region's militants to ISIS, the US is transforming Eastern Congo into a new front in a so-called war on terror. Of course, ADF rebels continue to operate like many other rebel groups in eastern DRC, which have caused suffering to civilians. A victim here speaks out.
Cesare ule vile balibaniaka banamufunga musikiana banamuua. The US claims its special forces are in the DRC to combat ISIS or Daesh-linked ADF rebels, while the UN says this group has no links to Daesh. So what's really behind US deployment of troops to the DRC?
Really, what it is a pretext for the US to officially and openly send their troops into the Congo by claiming that there's a group tied with ISIS. Really what's behind it is, the US has been at trade wars with China for a long time. And at the end of the day, what the US troops are doing in the Congo is not so much to fight Islamic forces and ISIS in the Congo, is actually to secure U.S. interest in the Congo, to ensure that they have a force to protect U.S. interest in the Congo.
Well, Felix Tshisekedi, the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, has called for a review of mining contracts signed with China in 2008 by his predecessor, saying he wanted to get fairer deals. Now, Mr. Getebuke, you earlier mentioned that the United States is increasing its military forces in the DRC to counter China. Can you elaborate more on that?
The US-China trade wars it's a global trade war. And Congo is an important part of, the global economy in so many ways. And, the minerals coming out of the Congo, they fuel so many different things. The uranium, the coltan, the gold, so many minerals coming out of the Congo fuel the global economy. And today, I'm convinced that the reason the U.S. is there, and especially with the renegotiating of the China mining contracts being announced, is for the U.S. to secure some of these mines. It's an extension of the trade wars. What's happening in the Congo right now, the deployment of these U.S. troops in the Congo, considering these mining contracts, is an extension of the global trade wars between the West and China, and specifically the U.S. and China.
On the 17th of January 1961, 60 years ago, Patrice Lumumba, the first legally elected Prime Minister of the DRC, was assassinated after being overthrown with the help from Washington. A Congolese citizen here speaks on the anti-colonial legacy of Patrice Lumumba and how current leaders have betrayed this legacy.
He had left us a great legacy. That is, working for the people and avoiding influence from Western countries. But we see since the Second Republic, our country is still being dominated by foreign powers.
The United States, through a spy agency, the CIA, assassinated Patrice Lumumba, who was a Congolese independence and revolutionary leader. Having this in mind, what's the opinion of the Congolese people regarding increased US military presence in their country?
Many Congolese people, especially a lot of the people who are, who study and analyze the region and study and analyze the Congo, are extremely concerned, and they have cautioned everybody about the presence of U.S. and other foreign troops in the Congo. So it's mixed. Mostly those who are well-informed are against the presence of U.S. military in the Congo, and generally.
The presence of rebels committing atrocities in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo raises questions about the functionality of the United Nations Stabilization Mission in the DRC, known by its French acronym MONUSCO. This is UN's largest peacekeeping operation with 20,000 troops on the ground for the past 20 years. However, these UN troops have been unable to eliminate the rebels. Locals are now protesting the ineffectiveness of the UN forces.
We denounce the ineffectiveness of the UN force MONUSCO, which has an offensive mission, but which for years has failed to do anything. MONUSCO must either act or pack up. We want to mobilize the national and international opinion in the face of this tragedy.
Now, the United Nations peacekeeping force in the eastern DRC has failed to stop attacks on civilians. Why is such a large force unable to fulfill its mandate?
These UN troops are actually, in fact, many of them taking a part in the looting, stealing of resources in the Congo, literally. Some of them are like smuggling and selling gold and other minerals. Some of them have been caught committing violence and sexual violence against the Congolese women. UN forces, where instead of carrying out the mission of protecting civilians, they actually are doing harm to the civilians. So it's a shame that so much money has been spent, so many troops are in the Congo, and they are not protecting civilians.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Gatabuke, for your analysis. We now take a short break before our next topic, which is about how the digital divide is slowing literacy in Africa. Stay with us.
Digital divide slowing literacy in Africa.
A report issued during this year's International Literacy Day has revealed that lack of access to computers and electricity is impacting negatively on literacy across Africa amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
The report by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, titled Literacy for a Human-Centered Recovery, Narrowing the Digital Divide, notes that in sub-Saharan Africa, only 7.7% were estimated to have a computer at home, while household internet access in the region is still limited with a rate of approximately 22%.
Now, despite the grim situation, there are efforts by organizations such as UNESCO to provide schools with internet access and computers. A teacher in the remote region of northern Kenya explains here how internet access has changed learning.
Internet has been a game changer, even in the performance and even the grades of our students here in school. So now many of them, because they can learn on their own, they can discover things on their own, their attitude has changed greatly. When they have the tablets, the learning becomes more interesting because there are different ways of accessing the same information.
Now, to discuss how lack of access to computers and internet is affecting literacy levels in Africa and possible solutions to this problem, we have contacted Julius Mbaluto, a London-based African affairs analyst. Thanks a lot, sir, for your time.
It's okay. Pleasure.
Now, Mr. Mbaluto, in your opinion, how serious is the digital divide in Africa and its impact on literacy?
Africa has got a very huge population. The population of Africa is like very youthful, a lot of them, and also they love technology. Most of them are techno savvy, but the governments have not managed to successfully bridge that gap of technology divide. So when you look into the West, most of these countries in the West, they are extremely covered well in terms of connectivity, whether we talk in terms of internet, accessibility, and also in terms of even affordability, which means like it's easier for a lot more people in the West to afford a laptop or even iPad or even a computer. But it isn't the same story for Africa, because in Africa, most of the time, then it's a question of affordability.
Thanks for that, Julius Mbaluto, African Affairs Analyst.
Most African governments must step up investment in information communication technology or ICT infrastructure to help students and employees work and study from home in this era of COVID-19 and beyond. Have African governments failed in their duties to bridge the digital divide, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic?
A huge population of schools, whether university, whether primary or even secondary, they didn't have the technology to enabling them to learn at home. And also in terms of lack of that technology means even some schools don't even have the computers that can even help them to do the same. So it's just a few that can manage that. So if you look into a country with challenges of technology and connectivity, indeed is a question of governance. It's a question of a government probably never really provided the infrastructure in schools to make sure schools can function efficiently no matter what season of life comes.
UNESCO says the pandemic and its repercussions have also magnified the pre-existing inequalities in access to meaningful literacy learning opportunities, disproportionately affecting 773 million non-literate young people and adults, mostly in Africa. A South African student says remote learning at home came with lots of challenges.
Remote learning was very difficult for me because we didn't have internet and the school taught us through WhatsApp. Since my mother was not working at the time, I was constantly worried that she could not afford data so that I could do my work.
What short-term and long-term steps are needed to remove the existing disparities in access to internet across Africa?
In terms of technology, it's about time Africa begins to focus on being self-reliant. And when you look into capabilities, if you go again to Kenya, the youthful generation of Kenya devised the most advanced system in the world for money transfer, known as M-Pesa. That one, even the West cannot reach that level. And you can see now, when given the chance, when youth's potential has been actually exploited, how far Africa can go. So it's about time for Africa to begin to look for solutions to the problems that Africa is facing. And also, without shy, government have to invest in these technologies.
While most developed countries move their classes online with ease, many developing countries have been found wanting due to a lack of infrastructure and the high cost of gadgets to access the internet, such as laptops, computers and smartphones.
Now, in a move towards self-reliance in IT gadgets, Kenya recently opened Africa's first nanotechnology and semiconductors factory. Now, the country's President Uhuru Kenyatta speaks here during the official opening of the factory.
We are already, from here, the first African country who are selling micro processors. We're selling to the United States now. We're selling to France. We're selling to Japan from Kenya. This is going to be the future for us to be able to now make our own motherboards, and from making our own motherboards to making our own television sets, to making our own mobile telephones. These are all new opportunities that are all going to be created from this seemingly very small but very critical foundation towards our manufacturing agenda for our republic. So I thank you. And I take this opportunity also to thank DR Congo University, and I want to thank them for also being visionary, not being difficult, allowing to give these young entrepreneurs seeking to come home, to bring their knowledge home, to give them space, to allow them to work with members of your staff, to enable them to engage with your students. Asante sana. This would not have happened without your support. So Bwana Kioni, Vice Chancellor, hongera kwako na viongozi wote wa DR Congo University.
Importation of gadgets such as computers and mobile phones has made these tools inaccessible to millions of poor students in Africa. Now, how can these challenges be solved?
We have all, across Africa, we have all these professors who have studied in the West in terms of technology. We have very capable people in terms of technologies and importation. Why not begin again to make our own computers? There's nothing wrong with that. We can make our own computers in Africa. If we harness all this, and it's just not a country-to-country thing. Yeah, I think this should be like a clarion call for African Union to bring countries together, to look, bring all the potentials, harness that potential of experts across Africa, depending on whichever country it is. Just identify them. Begin to what can you do for your country? Can you start a plant? Can you begin to give back to society? And this hub, can it be a hub for manufacturing computers, laptops? Even if you start in a very small scale way, one day it's going to grow, one day it's going to be big.
Now, while access to technology is critical in improving literacy, especially during the current pandemic, are African countries ready to have their own internet ecosystem to avoid digital colonialism and over-reliance on Western countries?
I want to address every country in Africa that claims and loves what they call sovereignty. I value that. Sovereignty is one of the most important things. But without your own internet, seriously, you're exposed. That's what I want to say. Simply put, you're exposed. The one controlling the technologies can see everything, every your plan, every bit of your tomorrow, every bit of your vision. They see through it, and therefore you are not free. And therefore, I am advocating African internet for African countries, and also systems that each country can protect itself, even in terms of security, and actually manage to control everything, every aspect of life in that country in a way that a foreign nation cannot interfere, cannot change, cannot violate security, cannot do anything. That's what sovereignty is about. Being independent, being in control of your destiny, being able to control your systems, having your own system that cannot be violated even by interferences of the West. That's the key thing for Africa.
Well, Mr. Mbaluto there says that for Africa to be truly independent, it needs to have its own internet infrastructure to avoid digital colonialism. Well, that's all the time we had for this edition of Africa Today. It's been great having you. Do drop us a line through our social media handle and send us your comments. You can also watch today's show on our website, presstv.ir. Thanks a lot for watching, and God bless you.